lesson 18 is on lines and angles. And we'll get to problems based on that in a little bit. Question number 1 says, Michaela estimated that there were 9 tables in the room with about 6 people seated at each table. How many people were seated at the tables? This is an equal groups problem from lesson 4. And when we have an equal groups problem, we take the number of groups, which in this case is the number of tables. We multiply it by the number in each group, which is the number of people at each table. And then we get the total number of items, and in this case, that's the number of people. So 9 times 6 gives us 54 people. The temperature at 8 a.m. was 65 degrees Fahrenheit. By 11 a.m., the temperature had increased 17 degrees. What was the temperature at 11 a.m.? This is a comparing problem. And in a comparing problem, you take the bigger number, which is what we don't know yet, so we'll call it x. You subtract the smaller number, which is the 8 a.m. temperature, and that gives you the difference. So what is 17 degrees more than 65? Or what, when you subtract 65, do you get 17? We can figure that out if we add 65 to 17. 65 plus 7 would give us 72, plus 10 would give us 82. And then we can just check that out. 82 minus 65. 12 minus 7 is 5 is 7. 7 minus 6 is 1. So it works out. Of the 50 customers, 35 bought the advertised item. What fraction of the customers bought the advertised item? So when we're talking about what fraction bought it, we take the total number who bought out of the total number of customers. So 35 out of 50, and then we reduce. Well, 5 can go into both of those. So 35 divided by 5, 50 divided by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 50 divided by 5 is 10. So 7/10. If I write that as a decimal, it equals 0.7, and then that as a percent, I would move the decimal point 1, 2 places to the right, add my 0 if there's nothing above the bump, so it would be 70%, or 7/10. Cleo walked 3 miles in 45 minutes. What was his average rate in minutes per mile? Minutes? So minutes per mile means that we're going to take minutes and divide it by miles. So minutes was 45, miles was 3. 45 divided by 3 is 15 minutes per mile. Now, in the next one, they're asking us what is his average rate in miles per hour. So the first thing that we need to do is convert minutes into hours. So I have 45 minutes over 1, and I know that 60 minutes equals 1 hour. So I'm going to put minutes on the bottom of the next fraction so that it cancels out with the minutes of the 45. So 60 minutes, 1 hour. And then 45 divided by 60 equals 0.75. So it's 3/4 of an hour. put my units on there. So now that I have the time in hours, I can use that to get my miles per hour. Miles per hour means I'm going to take the miles and divide it by the hour. So I have 3 miles and 0.75 hours. So remember I said that 3 or 0.75 was 3/4. So really it's 3 times 3 is 9 divided by 4. Let's see what that is. 3 divided by 0.75 is 4. So 4 miles per hour. In numbers 6 through 9, they ask us to simplify, and remember, we don't just reach for our calculator. These are to be done in your head or on paper and with paper and pencil. We want to build our mental math skills. So in number 6, we have 12 squared. Well, that means 12 times 12, and that's one of those math facts that you should just know. 12 times 12 is 144. You should know your times up to about 12 or 13. Then, number 7, conveniently enough, they have the square root of 144. And the square root asks the question, what number times itself gives you 144? Well, in number 6, we just found out that when we multiply 12 by itself, we get 144. So the square root of 12 then square root of 144 is 12. In number 8, we have fractions being subtracted. When we have that, we need to make sure that they have a common denominator. Right now we have 8 and 6. They don't match, so we need to find that common denominator. So looking at those two, 6 does not go into 8 and 8 does not go into 6. So I'm going to write out or think out the factors of each. So 8's multiples are 8, 16, 24. 6's multiples are 6, 12, 18, 24. So they both can go into 24. So I'm going to convert the 5/8 to be something over 24. So then I say, how do I go from 8 to 24 by multiplying? Well, 8 times 3 would give me 24. Whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do to the numerator, the top number. 5 times 3 is 15. And then I do the other fraction, 2/6 into something over 24. And I say, how do I go from 6 to 24? Well, 6 times 4 would give me 24. Whatever I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2/6 is the same thing as 4/24, and 5/8 is the same thing as 15/24. So now I'm going to rewrite this problem up here using my equivalent fractions. So I have 15/24 in place of 5/8 and 4/24 in place of 2/6. And when I subtract fractions, I subtract the numerator once they have common denominators. So 15 minus 4 is 11. And I leave the denominator the same, over 24. Number 9, I have mixed numbers, so the first thing I'm going to do is add my whole numbers. So I have 3 plus 1 is 4. Then I'm going to deal with the fractions. I see 4 and 12. I need a common denominator to add fractions. And looking at 4, I know that 4 is a factor of 12, so I can make an equivalent fraction of 1/4 and have something over 12. And to get from 4 to 12, I multiply by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. So 3/12 is the same thing as 1/4. So now I'm going to write that in place of 1/4. So 3/12 plus 11/12. Remember, I've already taken care of the whole numbers with the 4. Now I'm just going to deal with the fractions. So I have 4 plus 3 plus 11 is 14. And then when I add fractions, the bottom number, the denominator stays the same, over 12. And looking at this, I have 12/12. And then I'd have an extra 2/12. 12/12 plus 2/12 is 14/12. And 12/12 is 1. So I'm going to take 1 and add it on to the 4. That gives me 5. And then I have an extra 2/12 left over. And 2/12, since they both have a factor of 2 in it, I can divide 2 by 2, and I can divide 12 by 2, and I end up with 1/6. 2 divided by 2 is 1, 12 divided by 2 is 6. So my final answer, after all that work, is 1/6. 5 and 1/6. Number 10, we're comparing. The absolute value of -10 is 10, and the square root of 100 asks the question, what number multiplied by itself gives you 100? Well, 10 times 10 gives me 100, so the square root of 100 is 10. So those two are equal. And then the square root of 5 and 2, the square root of 5, since 5 is not a perfect square, is not going to be a whole number or a rational number. It'll be an irrational number. It will be a repeating decimal. But I do know that 2 is the square root of 4, because 2 times 2 gives me 4. And then I can just compare the numbers underneath the radical or the square root symbol. 5 is bigger than 4, so the square root of 5 is bigger than 2. Solve by inspection, meaning put the number in for x that will work. So what number, when I take 13 off of it, gives me 20? Well, I think that 33 works. So then I would check 33 minus 13. Well, 33 minus 3 would give me 30, and then minus 10 would give me 20. So that works. 5 plus what number gives me 13? Well, I think that 5 plus 8 gives me 13. So I check it, 5 plus 8 equals 13. Yep, that works. 2 times a number divided by 5 equals 10. So we need to know, first of all, what number, when I divide it by 5, gives me 10. And 50 divided by 5 would give me 10. So this top number right here, 2 times that has to equal 50. So 2 times what number gives me 50? Well, that number is 25. So now I double check. 2 times 25 divided by 5 is 50 divided by 5 is 10. So that one checks out. And then the last one, 8 times what number gives me 64? Well, 8 times 8 gives me 64. Write a sequence of 4 numbers with the first term 5 and a constant difference of 5 between the terms. So the first number starts with 5, and then difference of 5 means I'm actually going to add 5 on. So 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 5 is 15, plus 5 is 20. Jenna plans to paint the ceiling of a 15-foot by 10-foot room. Then mount crown molding, which is the wood that can go around the ceiling, along the upper edge of the walls. Jenna should buy enough paint to cover what area? So if we have a room that is 15 feet by 10 feet. Area is calculated by multiplying the length times the width. So 15 times 10. 15 times 1 is 15, and I stick a 0 at the end. So 150, and then feet squared for area. And then what length of crown molding will she need? Well, that's asking you what's the perimeter, because the crown molding is going to go all the way around the outside of the room. So perimeter is by adding all the sides together. So I have 2 10s and 2 15s. 10 plus 10 is 20, 15 plus 15 is 30, 20 and 30 is 50. And the units on perimeter are just the units of the length. Write the prime factorization of 128. Well, I start with my factor tree, and I say what two numbers, when I multiply them together, give me 128. And 64 and 2 gives me 128. Let me double check that. Yep, okay. So, then I ask the question, what two numbers multiply to give me 64? 8 and 8. What two numbers multiply to give me 8? And 8 is 4 and 2. 4 and 2. And then what two numbers multiply to give me 4? 2 and 2. 2 and 2. And then carry down the 2. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 2's. That's funny looking too. There we go. So, which equals, with exponents, 2 to the 7th. How many one-digit counting numbers are prime? Well, prime numbers, we have 1, actually 1's not considered a prime number, so then we have 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9. How many one-digit counting numbers are prime? Oh, it looks like 5 to me. Write these numbers in order from least to greatest. Well, we start with the most negative number. We have two negatives. This is -1 and then -4/5. Well, -1 is more negative. So we have -1, then -4/5, then 0. Then we have two positive numbers, 1 and 5/4. Well, 5/4 is more than 1 since it has an extra 1/4 on top of a whole. So then we have 1 and 5/4. Compare -5/4, the absolute value of that is, 4/5, and then absolute value of 5/4 is 5/4. 4/5 is less than 5/4. 4/5 is less than 1. 5/4 is more than 1. 0.8 and 7/10. Well, if I rewrite 7/10 as a decimal, I have 0.7. And 0.7 is less than 0.8. write 0.125 as a fraction and as a percent. Well, if I write it as a percent, it's pretty easy. I take the decimal point and I move it 2 places to the right. So 12.5%. And then if I write it as a fraction, I say, all right, I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I have 125 over 1,000. I can divide 125 by 25. 125 by 25 is 5. Let's see. Nope. So divided by 25 is 5, and then 1,000 divided by 25 is, let's see, there's 4 25s in 1,000, or in 100, so 40. And I can divide both of those by 5 as well. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So fraction 1/8, percent 12.5%. Compute a 15% tip for a dinner bill of $40. Well, the first thing that we want to do is calculate what's 10%, because 15% is going to be 10% plus 5%. And 5% is half of 10%. So if I figure out what 10% is, I'm almost there. Well, when I have a number, such as $40, to figure out 10%, I move the decimal place 1 place to the left. So 10% of 40 is $4, which means 5%, which is half of that, half of 4 is $2. So if I add those two together, that gives me my 15%. It's $6. The sales tax rate is 8.25%. What is the approximate sales tax for a $104 purchase? So if they're asking for approximate, I'm going to say that I'm going to round the sales tax to 8%, and I'm going to round the purchase to $100. So for 8%, I'm going to calculate first 1%. When I have $100, to calculate 1%, I move the decimal place over 2 places. For 10%, I move it 1. For 1%, I move it 2. So 1% of 100 is $1. Now I need 8%. So 8% is 8 times 1%, and 1% is $1. So 8 times $1 is $8. Plot these numbers on a number line. Alright, so the first one they have is the square root of 4. So here's 0, 1, 2. Square root of 4 is 2. I should have some bigger. So we're only going to go up to 4 here. So square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 16 is 4. So all these numbers are going to fit between 2 and 4. So square root of 2, or square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. And square root of 16 is 4. So square root of 5 is going to be closer to 2. Than 3, because 5 is closer to 4 than 9. Square root of 10 is going to be closer to 3 than 4, because it's closer to 9 than 16. And then square root of 15 is going to be closer to 4 than 3 because it's closer to 16. What is the side length of a square with an area of 40 centimeters? Well, to find the side length of a square, when they give you the area, well, to get 40 centimeters squared, they must have multiplied a number by itself. So they're asking, what is the square root of 40? So the square, or the actual exact side length would be the square root of 40 centimeters. And then it says, measured with a ruler, this side length is between what two consecutive whole numbers? Well, the square root of 6, or excuse me, the square root of 36 is 6. And then the next perfect square is the square root of 49, which is 7. So it's between 6 and 7. Because square root of 36 is 6 and square root of 49 is 7. Use this diagram to complete problems 26 and 27. So 26, describe each angle by type. So this is from this new section 18. Well, angle A, B, C, this angle right here is greater than 90 degrees, so it's called an obtuse angle. Angle A, B, D, right here, is a straight line. That's called a straight angle. Angle CBD is less than 90 degrees. That's called an acute angle. Oh, it's so cute. And then the last one, angle DBE, has the right angle sign in it. So it is a right angle. Suppose the measure of CBD, so the red angle, is 60 degrees. Find the following angle measures. ABC. Well, ABC is the green angle, and ABC and CBD make the straight angle. If you look at, if I go through ABC and then I go CBD, that's a full 180 degrees. So if CBD is 60, then 180 minus that is going to give me what ABC is, which is 120 degrees. And then ABE makes a linear pair or a straight angle with DBE. And DBE is 90, and 90 and 90 is 180. Number 28 says Kirsty drove 58 miles per hour for 1 hour and 52 minutes. Estimate the distance she traveled. So since they say the word estimate, we're going to use some rounding. So I look at 58 miles an hour, and it would be a lot easier if we called it 60. And then 1 hour 52 minutes is pretty darn close to 2 hours, so we'll call that 2 hours. So if I write that out, I have 60 miles per 1 hour, and then times, I want hours to be on top so that it cancels. So 60 times 2 is 120 miles. For problems 29 and 30, choose from this list all correct answers. So integers, which includes positive, negative, whole numbers, and 0. Whole numbers, which is 0 and positive whole numbers. Natural numbers, which are counting numbers, so it does not include 0. Rational numbers are whole numbers and decimals that end or repeat. Irrational numbers are decimals that do not end and do not repeat. And real numbers includes all of those options. So the number 0 is a member of which set of numbers? Well, it's an integer. It's a whole number. It's not a natural number. You don't include 0 when you count. It's a rational number. It's not irrational then. And f, it's a real number, because f includes all of those. The number square root of 7 is a member of which set of numbers? Well, since 7 is not a perfect square, when I take the square root of it, it's going to be an irrational number, which means it's not an integer, because that only includes whole numbers. It's not a whole number, it's not a natural number, and it's not a rational number. So the only other one is a real number, because real numbers include both rational and irrational numbers.